Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the second round of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GTE League 2026 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right folks, we're back once again for another round of intense GT endurance racing action and we are here today to continue the US Cup campaign, making our way all the way to the state of New York, and that's right, we are at none other than the mecca of road racing in the US of A, is of course Watkins Glen International. A circuit opened in 1956 in its formal format. It is a circuit that has gone on to become one of the premier circuits not just of the country but around the globe. Whether it be Formula 1, NASCAR or GTE World Change America, it's raced here all the way through of course to modern day none other than IMSA SportsCar Championship, and it is one of those circuits that keeps our drivers absolutely on their toes. Over the course of its extensive length, it is all about its 11 corners at its core, with 3.45 miles of tarmac also being added into the mix. The theme, find your flow, find your rhythm and keep every mile an hour you can going your way from corner to corner and onto straight to straight, because around here every mile an hour can be the difference between leading into the next corner or you find yourself side by side with one of your rivals. But as our drivers get ready to take on the circuit layout, the boot layout, which we'll be seeing here, open since 1992, here's a circuit that definitely will keep our drivers thinking one thing and one thing only: how exactly do I set up my car for success and how do I able to set myself up for success? And with the fact we've got a whole overhaul of the balance of performance today for what is our GT machines, with the arrival of the 2026 Season 2 update on iRacing, it's only going to keep things fresh and even more exciting. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this post-round broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on the 1A place you can catch all the racing action from this season. And so, of course, none other than YouTube, at youtube.com, and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP. And we should be clear, the racing action you are going to be seeing is not live. It occurred on Wednesday, the 11th of March 2026. But we're bringing it to you as if it were live today, none other than on Saturday, the 14th of March. So therefore, we do not know what's currently happening in the practice session that's unfolding in the background, nor the upcoming qualifying session, or most importantly, the race. And we're going on a learning experience of our own, much like you guys and girls who may not know what happens all the way through to the final finish line. And in terms of our schedule for today, times in Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, or Universal Coordinate Time -4, UTC -4. We're going to see in approximately 8 minutes time, we're making our way into our second qualifying session of the season at 10 past 8 this evening, after which we'll then make our way to the grid at approximately 20 past 8 for our 45-minute sprint race. And if round number 1 is any indicator of what today is going to be like, we are in for an absolute treat. All your commentary, of course, brought to you none other than by myself. My name is Paul Walsh. I'll be in your commentary for the whole of this season. And well, let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring you up to speed with the scenes after round number 1 and what exactly we can expect here in round number 2. And as we can see, last time out in round number 1, we were in the US state of Georgia. We are in the US Cup. It is a celebration of all the major motor racing circuits in the country. Indeed, circuits that have played host to GTE racing over its extensive history of the class, ranging from 1999 all the way through to 2023. At Road Atlanta, what exactly did we get to see back on the 25th of February? Well, we got to see some incredibly batting in amongst the field, but there was one name at the very front that ran away to take overall victory and with it the pro win. It was none other than Jason Landry, of course, only able to take part in this season on a part-time basis for a couple of rounds, but indeed, if it's the only round he's going to be able to make, he definitely made his mark by taking pole position by almost 3.5 tenths and then just gradually walking away, with James Logsdon in the end becoming the runner-up of the day, albeit Logsdon had a much more terrific task and to try and fend off none other than Chad Henson, and also what's some growing pressure in the early stage of the race from also Blake Phillips. However, it was Logsdon who was the runner-up, and meanwhile Chad Henson was able to take third place. He needed a couple more laps perhaps to be able to beat Logsdon's strategy come the final stint, but it definitely was nail bitely close between the pair. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, where it was a debut for Donald Cepek, and what a debut it was, he absolutely delivered, taking pole position and in the end leading off into the distance, and nobody was able to touch him over the course of the racing. Meanwhile, it's all changed the rest of the podium, with Jermaine Warren and Roger Ganesh competing the podium in the end, although the Sunday GT Turtles drivers of both Mark Senegal and Roger Ganesh will be fuming at the fact it could have been a 2-3 on the podium, but in the end it was only one of them there, and Jermaine Warren was able to make himself into the second spot after having a difficult qualifying session, but he was able to move forward in the race. So that's exactly who finished on the podium in both of our classes. We're going to be Pro and Prime, and here we are today then for the Watkins Glen International Circuit for our second sprint race of the season. And artists will be making our way all the way to the US state of Wisconsin next time out, and we'll be in the picturesque countryside for Road America. But how exactly did the standing stand then after our first round of racing? Well, here we can see, you look to your left, you got your Pro class standings, you look to your right, you got your Pro-Ams, and keep in mind of course that points are awarded based on overall finishing position first and foremost, so therefore it does encourage our drivers to battle as much as possible with each other, not just within their particular classes. This really is a class-based Race Championship, but it has overall connotations, and every point made or lost is absolutely critical when it comes to overall position. But Jason Landry taking the maximum set of points, 53 out of 53 from Road Atlanta, and therefore right now he has opened up a gap of 6 points. How he's not going to be on the grid today, and therefore it does open up a doorway for James Logsdon, the second place man in the pros, on 47 points. He's 3 ahead of Chad Henson. It's a further 2 to Shahi Zahair, and Zahair did look impressive, and to be fair, the Sri Lankan driver gradually finding his feet in his GT machine, and expect him to come on strong as the season goes on. Blake Phillips sits in 5th ahead of Gabriel Ferrero, and then we do have Taylor Bookout, Julian Jones and Eric Lagai completing your pros. To the right, Donald Sepek has taken the initial lead by 2 points over Jermaine Warren, into her 2 back to Roger Ganesh. Glenn Bratton wasn't too far behind in the end, sits in 4th at the moment, 3 points ahead of Tom Bryce. And then we do have Carl Peterson, Mark Senegal and Billman DaCosta round off your prime class, and Billman DaCosta having a bit of difficulty with his car last time out, but hopefully he's going to be getting on terms with it today, albeit with the balance point and the Titan physics model changes to these GTEs, it could all be chop and change, and we could see some other drives struggle instead. Indeed, it may be a difficult day for some. But in terms of where we are today then for our racing, we're at none other than the Watkins Glen International boot layout. The circuit that was opened up in order to extend the raceway, with the cup course coming first, but it was decided the boot or the run of turns 6 through to 9 would be introduced in order to open up the circuit for more endurance-based racing, and it definitely shows this circuit located in the village of Dix in Schuyler County of the US state of New York. 10 to 11 corners at its core. If you don't include the bus stop chicane, or the inner loop chicane if you will, it has no corner number. Now the drives are all the way around this circuit, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just its brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track mats contained within it. We'll see that our drivers here will have an absolute array of corners that will be blowing their minds. Firstly, of course, is the run down towards 90 right at turn number 1, where you go flat out all the way through the SS signals to turns 2, 3 and 4, and flat out all the way to inner loop bus stop chicane, and then after passing that you go into turn number 5. Outer loop, they'll see our drivers make their way into a heavily off-camber corner at the exit, as they then make their way downhill for the chute and into the boot. Coming down for the left-hander at turn number 6 then, as they do, they continue to be off-camber all the way through. Out towards toe bend at turn number 7, but then it's going to be plenty of camber on the road. You want to absolutely hammer the corner as much as possible, where you make your way down the backstretch and in towards hill at turn number 8. Through that right-hander, it's then uphill in towards turn number 9, and they'll return to the cup course, where they make the way over the road surface transition that can catch many a driver out at turn 9. Keep your eyes out for that, and then they'll make the way into the sweeping S at turns 10 and 11 to complete the lap and do it all over again. There's, of course, they don't bruise the car on the wall, the exit at turn number 11, because there's no runoff area there, converse to most of the other corners in this circuit. Indeed, there's just a hard concrete wall. Get it wrong, you became way too much speed, and you may hit it, and you could cost yourself time later on in the race. Now, a quick reminder of the rules before we do go racing. We have to have rules, otherwise we're not allowed to go racing. Setup-wise, this is a fixed setup series, with drivers running a fixed setup provided by the Middle of the Pack Racing League. Fuel loads have been restricted to 50%. Qualifying, we'll see an open qualifying format being used, whereby all the drivers take to an open instance of the circuit. They can come and go as they please over the course of the 10 minutes, as long as they don't interfere with one another. In terms of our sprint race, it shall start via a rolling start, as a tradition of GTE style racing, with each driver having one fast repair available should they need to use it. Otherwise, the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 10 or more instant points. But with the fixed setups and 50% fuel loads, we could expect at least one pit stop today, although it's not mandatory. If a driver does think they can make it to the end of the race unscathed on fuel capacity without the pit stop, they're willing to try it and do so. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's the introduction today. Let's make our way back to circuit side, and with only a few seconds to come before we go to qualifying. Who exactly is looking hot, and meanwhile, who's not as it comes to this practice session? Well, it's James Logsdon who's currently the fastest of everybody out there by 1.5 attempts over a returning name for Texas Speed Sim Racing, and Matt Best, who's currently not out there, but we'll definitely show you him in qualifying. And meanwhile, in the Prime class, it's Tom Bryce right now who's definitely moved forward in 8th, just ahead of Jermaine Warren. And well, you get to see the fact it's all chop and change with regards to the practice standings at the moment. But indeed, its practice is one thing. Oh, that's into the barrier there. I think that might be the car there of none other. Well, I believe that was David Adiyi deciding to eject himself into the stratosphere. But that is practice complete, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make our way then into qualifying. And so into qualifying we go, just like that. But the sun goes down as well, so it's going to make qualifying even more intriguing for our drivers, as we do see the lights go on here. And oh, this is going to be a classic race. This has got pure atmosphere about it, I can tell you that. There's nothing quite like a night race at Watkins Glen. But James Logsdon charges his way out the pit lane. Well, he's going to be the first of many to do so. We do have a grand total of 17 drivers in attendance here today, which is absolutely brilliant to see. The GTE is very popular and increasingly popular on iRacing. Now, the big elephant in the room. What exactly has changed changed about these GTEs since last time. Because, of course, we opened up the season in the 2026 Season 1 edition of iRacing, but we now moved into the 2026 Season 2 edition. Well, the main headlines are, firstly, the fact we have seen the GTs move on to the latest tyre model of iRacing. Now, many, of course, were a bit hesitant about this, given the fact the tyre model was absolutely adored on these machines. We have now moved to the tyre model that has been employed to the likes of GT4s, for GT3s and GTBs. What do you need to know about it? Well, so far the information that we've taken from what is the GTE official series in iRacing is the fact that the tyres are very similar to how they used to be. However, there has been two major changes. Firstly, the tyres now take a bit more time to warm up, and therefore Eric the Guy gives you a demonstration there as the Kyrgyzstan driver loses it coming through boot corner and makes his way to the barrier, and I suspect that's going to be a car towing to the pits very quickly. So therefore, you do now need to protect the tyre a little bit more in the warm-up phase. You need to take a couple of laps there to gradually ease the tyre into life. Do that, however, and you'll have very comparable performance to how the tyres used to be on the older tyre model. The only thing that has changed on the older tyre model when the tyres are warmed up is the fact now they cannot be pushed quite as hard anymore. Normally you have to turn things down at about 5 to 10% compared to how hard you could push the tyre previously, but what we are seeing as well is the tyre now lasts longer if you do so. So therefore this is a tyre which can really go the distance. It is the endurance tyre that we used to see, particularly from the tyre data that was available at the time publicly in 2020 and 2021 as the GT class was moving towards the end of its lifespan. Now do keep in mind what is a bit unique about GTE and why it's not easy to get tyre data, I only learned this the other day, is because of the fact during the GTE era of racing in IMSA Sports Car Championship and the FIA World Endurance Championship, there was no spec tyre. There was no requirement for every team to run one particular tyre. There was a tyre war going on between multiple tyre providers. And therefore, what it does mean is that the tyre data is not always completely readily available with regards to these GT machines. Of course, there is some data available, as we wouldn't have a tyre model here that's aimed to be as realistically as possible. But there are some gaps which have to be filled in, potentially, with regards to the fact because of the tyre war, obviously, different constructors of tyres don't want to give all their information away, which gives them the edge not just on the tyres on the racetrack, but also the tyres that you see on the road. Because, of course, the whole adage of a tyre war in motorsport is it's going to be, much like cars, race on Sunday, sell on Monday, and it's the same with the tyres there, as we do see Donald Seapitt make his way on through, hopping his way over the curb. But the tyres have changed then, and we do have now wet weather tyres available to us. Now, whether we're going to see wet weather conditions later on in the season, we'll have to wait and see. But it'd be absolutely epic if we did, no doubt about it. That's not me trying to give a suggestion to the Middle of the Pack Racing League administration in any way, as I wink, wink, and nudge, nudge in the commentary booth. But on top of that, as well as wet tyres, we have seen the balance performance receive some significant updates to the cars. Now, we do not know how it has actually changed the cars in terms of now what is the hottest car out there versus, of course, perhaps the arguably the more difficult car to get the most pace out of. We do know these GTs are very well balanced regardless, and that's the first verdict that is coming in. They are all still very close and competitive to each other, but we are waiting to see how close they're going to be today. As the initial pace lap is set by James Logsdon, a 43.315. He's going to be quite happy with that. He's got a bit more work to do if he wants to try and move his way forward. However, everyone's going to be putting those laps together. So those are the big changes that are afoot. This could be a grand reset for the field, to be fair to everybody. But meanwhile, we need to reset our thoughts and head back down the order and take a look at introducing two drivers who, if you've been a long-time Middle of the Pack Racing League fan, you'll know these drivers like the back of your hand. One of them, we decided to send his Porsche 911 RSI into the stratosphere at the end of practice. It's none other than David Adeyemi. Here he is, and will the privateer today make his way on through. I'm very happy to see him back on the grid once again. Indeed, he's a driver who's come through the rank and file of the Middle of the Pack Racing League, having started his time in the Prime class back in the midst of what was at 2024, if my memory serves me correctly, and he's become more of a regular in the Pro class as time has gone on. Indeed, his pace has really turned up the notch and put together some brilliant performances in the Winter GR86 Cup of 2025 and also the Fall Into Porsche Cup Series last year. But as he makes one through, we wish him all the best luck on his debut in his GTE machine today, and he's definitely gone with a good stable set of hands there in the form of the Porsche 911 RSR, and rolling his way on through, the driver who previously has raced for ITD West, and we may see that team back on the grid in full colours later on this season. And the fact, of course, we have got drivers still signed up for their teams. The Teams Championship is also a consideration, albeit not all the teams officially signed up yet until the end of this round. We also do have the return, of course, of the man who last time out in the Fall Into Porsche Cup Championship finally achieved the goal that he's been chasing for the best part of several years in the Middle of the Pack Racing League, which was to beat Jason Landry in the championship. It is Matt Best, of course, the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver who we absolutely love out there, and indeed he's one of the big fan favourites. Indeed, I do believe in his missus tunes into these broadcasts. So, hello, Mrs. Best. I hope you're doing well, and thank you for letting Matt go racing with us as always. But as number 11 driver makes one here, he's decided to go with the BMW M8. So he's gone for the big chunky boy, and as he comes down the line, well, he's definitely right now only 2 tenths of the fastest man of James Logsdon. But notice the fact, look at the delta in the lap times at the moment, and you can see the fact that is a very graphic delta in the way in which we are essentially now moving from where it's a second off of the overall pole time to coming down to it, and that's because these tyres are warming up. And in terms of the weather conditions out here, as we do see some improvements, David Adeyemi propels himself to third, then gets dropped to fourth as Jermaine Warren goes the fastest of the prime drivers right now. What exactly are the weather conditions today, I hear you ask? Well, there they are on the right hand side of your screen, and what we can see is that right now, in terms of the track and ambient temperature, 26 degrees centigrade across the board, and well, it's relatively warm on the track. However, we do have a lack of sunshine, of course, but we have clear skies out there, so it's the perfect nighttime conditions here for qualifying, and this could definitely set some drivers up here for success or challenges and difficulty later on. But your guess is as good as mine. In fact, this is going to be one of those circuits where it's you, the car, and your competitors. You don't have to worry too much about the sun causing the circuit to blister up. Indeed, the only heat that you're going to see generated will be where the cars are going on around. But speaking of cars going on around, we owe you an on-board lap, and so without further ado, we jump on board here with Taylor Bookout as he takes us around for a flying lap. So making his way down towards 90 right at turn 1, braking out the 200-yard board and coming all the way down to third gear. Gets on the throttle, as long as he keeps two wheels on that exit curb, he'll be A-OK. And now powering his way in towards the S's in his Porsche 911 RSR. Screaming his way up the hill, heading upwards at 9,000 RPM as he gets ready to go to top gear. And as he now settles down, coming through the right-hander at turn number 4, he's going to be let the car drift over to the left-hand side here to open up the chicane. But of course, he's got to look for a brake marker on the left of the fluorescent boards. He'll be looking to go onto the brakes at the 300-yard board. Trail braking down, dropping down to fourth gear, right into left and left into right, down to third down the transition. Now coming through the outer loop bend, up to fourth gear in order to be able to settle down the rear left tyre and give himself as much confidence on the throttle. Running out wide there as you're allowed to do so, and now down into the chute. Onto the brakes there, about 150 meters from corner apex, going as late as he can, fighting a bit of an understeer creeping in there as he breaks his way down for the off-camber bend. All these corners so far have been primarily off-camber, and now into the heavily cambered toe corner. Trail braking off at the 100-yard board, all the way down to the second gear, go as late as you can, and then get back on the throttle immediately. It's squirt and charge all the way down towards heel, and as he makes his way in towards heel bend now, looking to his left-hand side, it'll be at the 200-yard board. He'll go onto the brakes there, coming all the way down the gearbox to second gear. A little bit too much apex curve there, just pushes the car around, but to be fair, that's only going to cost him half a tenth. Now in towards turn number 9, the tricky corner, because you'll notice there's a small bump in the road. There it is, and as he transitions back onto the cut road surface, he's got to make sure the rear of the car settles down. In towards turn number 10 at this point, fourth gear all the way through, and as he makes way from left into right, looking over to his left-hand side, no brake marker to work with here. This is more about muscle memory, holding third gear, and just a bit too close to the wall there, grazes the wall, but he'll get away with that this time around. But Taylor Bookout definitely pushing hard there as he heads towards the end of that lap, and with 1.5 minutes left on the clock, well, he does not improve that time around. I think the grays were all there and validated the lap. Indeed, the iRacing automated steering system, very particular about what happens when you touch a wall. You never want to touch them, to be fair. But meanwhile, well, from this man who had difficulties at the start of the corner, and he's currently the fastest out there in his Porsche, it's none other than Eric Lagai, who's absolutely flying right now. That's highly impressive, no doubt about it. But how much further can he go? That's going to be the big question here, as we do show you the different car logo affiliations there in the time tower as well, to give you that information so you can see who's driving what. And meanwhile, Matt Best moves to second now, only a tenth off a pole. And well, I can tell you one thing, he may have missed Road Atlanta, and I think he was gutted to miss it, but right now he's not missing out here with regards to his qualifying session. And it does seem as though, right now at least, the Porsches are looking quite quick around here at Watkins Glen, which they should be when you think about it, in the fact the Porsche is normally identified as a handling car, although as well, towards the very end of its GTE career, the Porsche was also considered to be the fastest on the straights. And well, what do you have here? You have plenty of long straights, and you have plenty of corners that will absolutely maximise the Porsche's strengths. Meanwhile, James Logsdon's Ferrari, well, he's definitely stayed with the Italian mark, and he's looking good out there as he runs it a bit too wide. Oh, goodness me, and you can understand if he's pushing, but that's going to be the end of that qualifying session for him, because that lap will be invalidated and he will not be making it around to get another one on the board with only 20 seconds left on the go. He has got 40 seconds at least of time out there to do before he sees that line. But who's struggling? Who's doing well? Bill DaCosta right now, the Team Bear Poke driver down towards the back, but to be fair, he's looking to move forward as quickly as he can in his own Ferrari. Bit of a learning experience for him. And Bear Poke decided to stick with their Ferraris, whereas everyone else meanwhile staying away from the Italian mark. Well, with the checkered flag out in this qualifying session, we do, of course, now have the overtime in effect, whereby if a driver is on a lap, they must finish it. Alternatively, say their prayers with regards to all the laps they've done and hope there's going to be enough. As David Adie calls himself on down now, I don't believe he's able to get onto another lap. He's currently in 10th place here, so he's fallen down the order. A lot of chop and change, but the key thing is look at the top three. 2 tenths between them, and then from 4th all the way through to 12th. That is 6 tenths there, separating 9 drivers. It is so close in that mid-pack right now. Indeed, this is some of the closest we have seen it here in the Middle Pack Racing League, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, after 5 years, when we're seeing GTE cars at Watkins Glen with 9 drivers separated by 6 tenths, and you do the mathematics there, that's not in a tenth between driver to driver. We are looking at some of the tightest spread of field we have seen in a long time. You'd have to go all the way back to, I do believe, all the way back to the Radical era when we did have such close qualifying sessions. But as Chad Henson improves to a 42.886 right at the end of the session, nice lap from him in his Corvette C8R. Well, he decides to park up there, all's done and dusted. David Adie and Donald Cepek right now on their final laps, and well, he comes into the pits, does Cepek. He's not happy, and how this is a turn upside down here for the man who absolutely controlled the narrative in the Prime class last time out at Road Atlanta. But to be fair, Watkins Glen is a very different style of circuit. Road Atlanta, it is one of those circuits where you've got to really be confident in your abilities. You've got to ride the adrenaline rush at Road Atlanta. Around here, it is similar in a way. And in fact, it is an uncompromising circuit, but you don't have as many rather noticeable elevation changes. They are more gradual, is what I mean to say, as the sparks fly there from the under tray of David Adie's Porsche. That was a beautiful moment. If we've got any absolute budding photographers, you're definitely going to want to get a shot of that. That was incredible. And Adie making his way onwards right now. Does he improve right at the end of the session? The answer is no. 10th is where he'll stay. He's got nowhere to go, and therefore he'll split the field in the middle effectively. So, after 10 minutes of qualifying, it is going to be none other than Matt Best who takes pole position on his return to the grid for this season, and it was only by 2 tenths in over Eric Lagai, who kept him close, and James Logsdon a further 2 tenths behind. And meanwhile, in the Prime class, Tom Bryce takes his maiden pole position of the season, 5th overall, with Gabriel Ferreira separating from the rest of the Primes, starting with Jermaine Warren and Mark Senegal, who will be on that 4th row together. A tight qualifying session, but right now, how tight will it be when we go racing? Well, the good news is, ladies and gentlemen, we have only got a few seconds to go, and we're going to be making our way to the grid for the formation lap here at Watkins Glen International in round number 2 of the Middle Pack Racing League GTE League for 2026. And well, the circuit definitely falls silent here, and well, it won't be staying silent for too long, because here we go to the grid for the second race of the season, and this is how they'll all line up as darkness definitely falls. And as we can see, as the headlights gradually come on that grid, it is going to be Matt Best who takes his maiden pole position for the season for Texas Speed Sim Racing. It was a 42.211. Can he now run away with proceedings? If not, will the Kyrgyzstan privateer of Eric Lagai hold on to him, starting second there in the number 6. On row number 2, it's going to be James Logsdon for Team Bearpoke, just ahead of Chad Henson, the privateer. Expect them to go back to back with regards to battling once again, like they did at Road Atlanta. And then we'll see starting in 5th place there, your pro and pole sitter Tom Bryce. A very impressive lap from him in his 2.72, the best part of what was 8.5 tenths off the overall pole time, but to be fair, almost 2 tenths faster than the rest of the pro-ams. However, before you do get to the rest of the primes, we do have Gabriel Ferreira there, slotting in 6th place, the American driver, just ahead of his fellow countryman of Jermaine Warren, second of the primes there, starting in 7th for middle of the pack racing. In 8th, it's Mark Senegal for Sunday at GT Turtles, only in the end what was 23 thousandths behind. But from the Canadian, Tushar Hizaher, the Sri Lankan, it was a further 4 thousandths. That's how tight this middle field is. Then from 9th to 10th, David Adie, he was a further what was 1.5 tenths behind the privateer on his debut. Good to see him out there, return to the grid once again. Debut for this series, we should add, not in the middle of the pack racing league as a whole. And then outside that top 10, starting 11th, it's going to be Donald Cepek there, the leader in the Prime class, at least out of Road Atlanta, but he may not be leading after today. And the Team Bearpoke driver then followed up by the Pit Club Sim Racing's Blake Phillips, who starts in 12th place. And then we do have Roger Ganesh starting 33rd for Sunday GT Turtles, head of Taylor Bookout there. And well, the Team Bearpoke driver, not quite on the pace here today in qualifying, but to be fair, he may be able to make some magic happen in the race. It's 45 minutes of racing. A qualifying lap is just 1 lap, as they say. Glenn Bratton begins the day in 15th, just ahead of Carl Peterson for Sunday GT Turtles. Turtles, and it will be Team Bear Post, Bill DaCosta, who brings up the rear of the field in 17th place. Well, that is how all 17 of our drivers line up, and the good news is they are gradually starting to make their way away as the formation lap gets underway. And, well, it's going to be a full formation lap of the Watkins Glen circuit. It will be the best part of around 2 to 2.5 minutes. So if you do need to take that quick bathroom break, go do it now, because we can't pause the action here, ladies and gentlemen, and by the time you come back, you don't want to miss the race start here as they all make the way under nightlight to what will be the S's here, and very limited amount of ambient lighting. Indeed, the circuit side lighting has primarily been switched off here in order to make sure that nighttime conditions are generated, and that's one of the interesting things, of course, about a number of American circuits, not as regular occurrent on the European circuits. I'm not quite sure about the Asian region circuits, is the fact the night lighting, typically a lot of American circuits, is so strong it actually has to be dialed down. If you do want an interesting statistic, the floodlights are available at none other than Daytona International Speedway. When the 24 Hours of Daytona is hosted there every year, those lights have to be turned down to, I believe, 25% of their normal intensity in order to ensure nighttime conditions can be generated. Otherwise, if they are run at the intensity you would see in a NASCAR race, they are so bright in the end you'd actually think it was daylight out there. But there's no lighting whatsoever here at Watkins Glen, particularly around the back end of the lap, so it's going to be going into distance, and night racing in itself is a challenge. And we saw drivers practice in daylight. In qualifying, they qualified into the night, and now they are racing through the night, and therefore this could just be as tight as just simply being in daytime, being close for your rivals. But as they all make the way on around, we jump on board here with Shahi's ahead, the number 10 driver. And right now the privateer starting in what will be the rearward section of that top 10, but 9 in his BMW. He might be able to make some magic happen. Now, what have we seen so far in regards to these cars? Not too much information. It does seem as though the BMW is quite strong still, particularly over a single lap, but over race pace has normally been its weakness on its brakes. And, well, the Porsches have been good. The Ferrari's also been quite quick as well, as James Logsdon has demonstrated. Well, it's all going to be plain to see. And will the Corvette still have its long race pace advantage that we've previously seen, or has that gone away? Particularly with the new tyre model, will that mean that right now all these cars can protect their tyres a lot better than they used to be able to? We do, of course, have our sole Ford GT representative here towards the very back of the field, Carl Peterson. Very good to see him out there, and, well, a very lovely lit up car there. The Ford GT always does captivate the eyes of the Sunday GT Turtles. Try and makes his way down at the very back of this formation lap group in towards Hill Bend, but as he does so, 9 for him. There's no pressure other than to move forward gradually. Will he be able to do so? He'll have Bill DaCosta for company. But the field comes back to us now. And going through turn number 9, well, Matt Best knows it's not too long before it's his time to dine. And it's going to be 45 minutes of absolutely incredible racing here for round number 2 of the championship. Everyone doing a bit of bobby to weave, still trying to get that last little bit of tyre temperature they can. Matt Best, meanwhile, he's got his head down here. And we're going to leave him to it, ladies and gentlemen, because it's over to the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver to take us away for round number 2 of the 2026 Middle of the Pack Racing League GTE League, brought to you on iRacing, here today from Watkins Glen International. And it's lights out and away we go for a second race of the season as Best leads the field down towards turn number 1. It's a good start from Best, but right now, how far is everyone else going to come? As we do see, oh, there's a bit of a moment there further back, a bit of sideways under braking. 2 cars coming into contact there. I believe that's going to be Taylor Buckout and Blake Phillips coming together. And in the end, Phillips loses out. Buckout as well with him, but I think multiple drivers were caught up in that. It wasn't just those 2. But meanwhile, whilst there's been drama further back at the front of the field, Best has got the start he's needed. For James Logsdon, Eric Lagai right now looking side to side to each other and battling hard as they make their way down the back stretch. We can see there Logsdon and the guy now settling down. The Ferrari ahead of the Porsche driver for now. As further back there, it's going to be close into the bus stop chicane. But it does seem as though there, everyone now safely on through. Shahi's ahead. He's lost out slightly since the start. He's holding on tonight, but he's lost 1 place in pro to David Adeyeye. Adeyeye sneaking away ahead there in the Porsche 911 RSR versus the BMW driver. But now here they come down into the chute, and this is where we're starting to see the field calm down a little bit. Indeed, the opening couple of corners always exciting at Watkins Glen, but very quickly it goes from absolute mad scramble into much more considerate racing. But we see there Glenn Bratton on the attack versus Roger Ganesh in the battle for 4th place in the Prime class. The fight for a length there, and the 289, albeit mostly blacked out that you can't quite see it, given chase in his BMW. But Bratton having to stay in the draft there of the Corvette driver as they roar the way past our static camera there. And meanwhile, we look to Mark Senegal. He's got David Adeyeye looking up the inside. Adeyeye trying to go for a move. That's not going to quite work, unfortunately, coming in towards Hill Bend. So Adeyeye trying to make amends and move up the order already. I think he feels as though there's a lot more pace for him compared to his qualifying pace. Right now, he's not able to quite show it as they come towards the end of this opening lap. But Best right now in control, or is he? James Logsdon is looking very quick here at the start of the race. I wonder whether he's trying to get the tyres of that Ferrari switched on as quickly as he can and perhaps put some early pressure on. But they are out of the opening corner they go, and the reason I stumbled over my words there was because there's a bit of tap to the wall for Eric Lagai, as we do see a flash of the headlights there from Matt Best. I wonder if he's checking to see whether they work properly, and the answer is yes, they do. It's just very dark out there as he goes on to lap number 2. So it's Best who leads, ahead of Logsdon, followed by Lagai. Then Henson is fourth, ahead of Ferrero. Then we do have Tom Bryce sitting in 6th, just ahead of Mark Senegal, followed by Shah, he's ahead. Don Cepek, Roger Guinness, Jermaine Warren, David Adiyi. That's the running order. We have got a car off the road. Glenn Bratton's gone wide. I'm not quite sure what's happened to him. It's all gone very wrong there for Glenn Bratton. We'll understand as quickly as we can what's happened to him, but definitely things have gone a bit backwards right now for Bratton. Taylor Bookout's right there with him. Meanwhile, there's change of foot here. 2 wide into the chicane they go. That's Hobbs giving a jump over the curb, and that's going to be Ferrero there, mounted the curb so aggressively in the end. We lose the place there to Tom Bryce, and with the suspension, that Corvette's definitely been put through a bit of rigor now. Meanwhile, coming back to the Bratton Bookout battle. Bratton back ahead of Bookout, just about they're coming through the chicane, so no change. As meanwhile, we've had a bit of a mistake here from a driver. Now, is it Roger Ganesh who's fallen back down the order? We believe so, although Donald Cepek's there with him. In fact, Cepek losing out for what was 9th place. There's a bit of change also just up the road. There's going to be 2 wide there. It's going to be Gabriel Ferreira mounting the curve at turn number 7. And we'll get themselves together now. Here comes Bart Senegal back versus the Corvette driver. And Gabriel Ferreira going defensive here. These two absolutely fighting hard. The battle of Porsche and Corvette, the 2 stalwarts of the GT class and iRacing. And with Mark Senegal on the attack, looking for a move. Goes to the switchback as we ride on board with the Canadian driver. But Ferreira in the end pitches the car right in the middle of the road and says to him, there is no way through for you, sir. You're going to have to wait your turn. But right now, Mark Senegal, I think, wants to get a bit of a move on here. I think he feels he's got the pace to chase down Bryce. You see they're off in the distance right now with a gap of the best part of 1.5 seconds between Senegal and himself. We're coming up towards what will be the final corner of this lap. Senegal at least will stay in the Wheeltrex there of the Corvette, but he's got to start thinking to himself, right, if I can't pass him on the road, can I do it on strategy? Can I perhaps be a little bit smarter with regards to fuel saving and, of course, tyre management? We see a cheeky peek there from Shah. He's ahead, thinking about a move. Meanwhile, Donald Cepek battling side by side with Roger Ganesh, and it's going to be Cepek looking up the inside there. Lovely move with his BMW, and once they make their way through, the only reason we can tell it's a BMW on the inside is because of the enormity of the grille. We're coming up the hill right now, and meanwhile, Roger Ganesh back it off a little bit initially, but now he's going to have a really good run here in that Corvette, and it does seem as though that Corvette is a lot faster down the straight line compared to what we previously said, although, to be fair, the fixed setups might be changing that nature in a way, and the fact that all these drivers, of course, running a fixed setup on the car, whereby they will have relatively similar rear wing, but also means their gearing will be slightly different compared to what they could run on an open setup. But fixed setups does mean that everyone has an equal car, and they're all balanced around one type of setup, normally high downforce, but as they come through here, high downforce definitely being the key theme of Watkins Glen by default. If you set up a car around here, you want that rear wing to maximise the quarter speed, so they're on the right setup, no doubt about it. But as they come down the hill, well, we've had a bit of a moment for Mark Senegal. He's dropping down the order like a stone. And that's happened at Chute Bend. I think he's gone wide on entry, and he's found the grass, he's found the barriers, but he's returned to life. Well, he's dropped all the way down to 11th place, so he was battling with Donald Cepek, and now he's lost out considerably, and we'll get a replay of that very short indeed. We've got a few replays to bring you with regards to action that's happened. We've got a bit of time before we do get a chance to take a look back, or have we? Are things calming down? So we don't want to walk away. There's all battling action still playing out here today so far. We're not even 5 minutes through the race. In fact, in 3, 2, 1, there we go. That is 5 minutes complete. We've still got plenty more laps to come. It is absolutely fast, it's furious, it's frantic here, and that's exactly what we know about the middle of the pack race league. If it's going to be any class of car, there's always going to be plenty of action, as Eric Lagai there again pushing so hard in 3rd place right now on the exit at turn 11. I think he's struggling right now for straight line speed. He's trying to maximise those corner exits, but it seems like that Porsche just wants to understeer a bit more than what he's used to. But meanwhile, looking further back there, Gabriel Ferreira attacking Tom Bryce, and 90's got to try and find a way, and if we ride on board the gyro camera here of your number 24, and will make his way on through turns 1 and 2. Decides to run a little bit wide there. Now, I wonder if that's to bleed off some speed early through the S's. Sounds counterintuitive, but he wants to catch the Porsche driver on this section. He does want to catch him midway through the S's through the fear of backing out, but now looking to the outside here, where he's going to have to look round to the inside of the second part of the chicane, and here they go on the brakes. Ferreira goes all in, Bryce backs off there, and Gabriel Ferreira makes the move happen. Commitment, but he commits too much to the bit. But does he keep it within track limits? Yes, he does, and in the end, Bryce rises with a bumper, and Bryce taps it too hard. Oh my goodness, and that's going to send multiple cars sideways. Shahi Sayed goes round into the barrier as well. Car rolls back onto the road, he goes to the right, the other cars go round to the left-hand side, and thank goodness, oh my goodness, there's elbows out between the two. That's going to send, I believe, a brief man as Roger Ganesh being elbowed to the grass by Noam and Donald Cepek, but they both survive it. How on earth did they get away with that? I'll never know, but I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it's elbows out right now, but they're keeping it respectfully elbows out. I don't know if that's the way you can actually race, but to be fair, they're showing you can do it. And Mark Senegal on the back of all this is thinking, what about my opportunity? As David Adeyemi squeezed ahead of him there in all the chaos and confusion. They're heading down towards the hill corner right now. Well, they're all poking, they're all probing. This mid-pack is absolutely lively. You love to see it. They're heading up the hill right now. It is Jermaine Warren who has taken the lead of what is the prime class as a result of everything that's played out. But we're going to need several replays of what's happened there, because it was absolute pandemonium, and Warren now leads for the first time this season. Can he run away with it, or is he going to be reeled back in? He's got a 1 second gap to Roger Ganesh, who right now has literally got the hungriest pack of cars behind him that I've ever seen in GTE racing. But to be fair, if Ganesh can hold a Donald Seapeck at this moment, that would be an achievement in itself, given the fact he's holding on versus the man who took victory last time out as Shahi's Aher comes into the pit lane. I suspect with that contact to the barrier, he's got damage to the rear of the car and he's deciding to get that fast repair nice and early. But will he be able to get to the end on a single tank of fuel after his pit stop? Given the fact he will put some fuel in the car, he'll be hoping he's able to do so, but we will see whether that's realistically possible for him. But meanwhile, these drivers come on down, and James Logsdon tucked in behind Best and Eric, the guy behind him still. These drivers all together, and it's definitely looking intriguing with regards to exactly how things are going to play out between them. But right on the way off the corner, meanwhile, change of position further back. That is going to be on the inside there. Don Seapeck making a move, but David Adeyemi says no. Seapeck says yes, and now Adeyemi says, I didn't say you could run away with that. As meanwhile, Mark Senegal looking on behind here, trying to find out which driver's the right one to invest in. We ride on board here with the Sunday GT Test drive. There is David Adeyemi, and Senegal tucks back in behind. Adeyemi tries to use the momentum the pro driver is creating for him here. A door was open, and in the end, Seapeck's going to be going high on the exit curve, but he's on the inside now in his BMW. So Donald Seapeck right now, he knows he's got to dig in as much as humanly possible here as they roll the way out the corners. This is absolutely brilliant racing. There's Mark Senegal right now. He's got Seapeck up against the ropes. If it was a boxing match right now, this would be close to knockout, but who exactly is going to land the blow here for this move? And in the end, it's going to be Senegal just around the outside, as Donald Seapeck in the end just does not have the legs coming through hill bend. But now heading up the hill here, and that BMW revealing, of course, front engine, rear wheel drive, front mid engine, it should be pointed out, but still not quite strong in the corners by default compared to all the other mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars out here, and that's why he's just falling back a little bit. But we've seen Donald Seapeck so quick on the straights in that BMW, and also a bit better on the brakes the car seems to be compared to before, so maybe the BMW's been brought up to touch with regards to its braking performance, although the Porsches definitely still seem to have a slight edge on braking compared to their rivals. As here we go, Roger Ganesh now looking up the in fact, that's not Roger Ganesh, that is David Adeyemi looking up the inside of Roger Ganesh, and Ganesh in his Corvette gives up the place there, so now we know he can go into the toe onto the next straight. But meanwhile, back to the front of the field we go. That is a look around the outside there from Eric Laguy and James Logsdon. Matt Best right now struggling a little bit there. He makes a complete ham sandwich of the chicane, and as he comes on down right now, well, I think James Logsdon's trying to butter him up for a move, but will there be a move coming? Not quite now, but definitely Best, after what has been an opening 10 minutes that's been very strong, he's now starting to just show some slight signs of weakness perhaps. And then, to be fair, if Matt Best is going to make a mistake, he doesn't normally make them, and normally his mistakes will be absolutely huge when they happen. Indeed, he doesn't do anything by short measure. This man is either 0 or 100, and right now he's absolutely 100 with regards to his pace, but is it going to come back to haunt him later on in the race? That's what we're going to see as they come down towards what will be the hill bend one more time. But as they do, well, we're going to take a quick look back at some of the big moments from early on this race, ladies and gentlemen, because we kept you waiting for those. Indeed, we're going to take a look back firstly to what happened to Blake Phillips and Taylor Bookout on the opening lap. So this was the field made the way down in towards turn number 1 off the formation lap and under braking. Oh, goodness me, that was a nightmare moment there for the number 25 Blake Phillips. Locking up, hit a car side on there. That was the car into about, I believe, that was one of our Corvettes getting caught out. I think that was Jermaine Warren. And, well, in the end, Blake Phillips and Taylor Bookout coming to blows as well. On lap number 2, this is what happened for David Adeyemi. It went very wrong down in towards turn number 1 for him. But what exactly did go wrong? And the answer is carried in way too much speed. Got too close to the back there of the Porsche Mark Senegal, and the car completely slid loose. And meanwhile, where was Glenn? Oh, that was Glenn Bratton saying hello to the camera there as he slid into the corner. And how exactly did that happen, I hear you ask? Well, here's a replay of that. This was a very dramatic moment under braking for Glenn Bratton as he came on down. Well, in fact, that was not Glenn Bratton going sideways into the camera. That was a different car entirely. Or was it? No, it was definitely Glenn Bratton. We were right the first time. He had a bit of a biff to the barrier there, unfortunately, so that did put some damage on the car. Lap number 3, we had this for Mark Senegal. So the Canadian driver made his way out of the outer loop. And under braking here, we believe he went very deep into chute bend. He went deep. He tried to get the car stuck. Oh, my good Lord. And well, in the end, he went for a 1440 spin. And the car, in the end, came back in relatively relatively good condition, but that was not a nice amount. I can imagine he's got some suspension damage to the rear of that Porsche, just out-braking himself, and in the end trying to slow the car through, over-braking the gears, and well, as a result, the rear of the car said no, and it went to the barrier. But then we had this on lap number 4 between Tom Bryce and Shahi Zaher. This was absolute pandemonium coming down into the outer loop, and it was Bryce tapping the rear of the car in front of him of Gabriel Ferrero, and in there Shahi Zaher trying to go around the outside to take evasive action. He had no time to really react, and this is what it looked like on board from Shahi Zaher's perspective. And you can see here, looking down the outside, that time in 7th place, and there goes Bryce. He tries to pull the car to left, but unfortunately Bryce's car then rolls backwards as would be expected in such a situation, and well, Shahi Zaher being pranged to the wall there, and damage to the car, and absolute bit of heartbreak for him as we make our way back to your live racing pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do come back, this is back on board with your leader at the moment, but as time continues to chew its way down, well, we can see Matt Best still holding on, Eric Laguy there with it, and James Logsdon has been passed by Eric Laguy. It has literally just happened slightly off camera, but we believe Logsdon went a bit deep at turn number 1, and therefore it has been a change of foot between these three drivers. But when you consider the gap right now, 2 seconds in totality, we haven't missed too much, there's still plenty more to come. But things are calming down a little bit now, as we're almost 15 minutes into this 45-minute race, and it does seem as though our top 3 all now thinking about the bigger picture game, and simply put, that is to see whether strategy is going to be the thing that pulls them to victory. Chad Henson, meanwhile, perhaps not on the pace of the top 3, however, we say that, he is starting to set some personal bests here. He might be turning up the wick a little bit, but he's really full fastest at the moment, and it's showing in the fact that he's got a comfortable 4-second gap to Gabriel Ferrero, but he's also 4 seconds off the top 3. It's been an odd place to be fair to him, and this is why there's races right now that will really be a test of his mental fortitude, because at night, on top of the fact that he's lonely out there, all he's got is his headlights. He's got no other cars to really act as his way marker. And, well, when you're out there on circuit, it's one thing to be in daylight by yourself, because then you've got to try and keep yourself in full concentration mode. But you see him touch the grass there, you've now got to try and keep yourself in full concentration and remember where the circuit is. Just hold up a second. We have had an incident for Roger Ganesh, I believe, where in fact David Adeyeye, somebody's had it go wrong. I think it's Adeye's had it go wrong, because he's being passed by multiple cars here, and that's Adeyeye going slowly down the back stretch, and he's fallen all the way down to 11th place. Well, there's been an error. We're going to get replay of that shortly as to what exactly has happened to your number 32 driver. And, well, things have gone very backwards. They have not gone in the right direction whatsoever. In fact, I think we might be able to get a quick replay as of now, ladies and gentlemen, and also get a replay. We're going to start with what happened between Laguy and Logsdon only moments ago. So this was coming down towards turn number 1. It was Eric Laguy behind Logsdon. So Logsdon made a mistake here. Ooh, the car snatching on him there as he went to turn in the rear, let go, and he had to very quickly come off the brakes and then reapply them to get it to stop. That's why he lost for 2nd place. It wasn't that Laguy had a move on him. It was Logsdon making error. The Ferrari has started to bite back a little bit. Well, that might be a sign of where the Ferrari is in terms of its pace now. Meanwhile, later on this lap, we've had this for David Adeyeye. So this was Adeyeye very comfortably at the time in 6th place. He was clear of Jermaine Warren by 1.5 seconds, went into the corner, carried way too much speed, and the car bombing out there on the tarmac, went to the barrier, ricocheted off it, so he's definitely crumpled the rear of the car in very nicely, and then everyone just making the way and past it on the inside, so he's trying to get the speed back together, and that sends him all the way down to 11th place as Taylor Bookout in the end was able to sneak up the inside just before Hill Corner. With that, we're back to your live racing once again. So, some big moments there on lap number 8, and indeed, if that's what's in store for lap 8, I wonder what's in store for the rest of the race, as we've still got plenty of time on the cards. We've got a couple of drivers who are a lap down at this point, due to damage they picked up earlier on, Blake Phillips, Tom Bryce and Billman DaCosta, but we'll have to wait and see where they fit into the theme. Speaking of Billman DaCosta, here he is right now in his Ferrari, one of only 2 Ferraris out there for Team Bearpoke, the other one, of course, James Logsdon. He may be at the back of the field right now a lap down, but to be fair to him, he's learning every lap he turns in this car. It's always great to see him out there giving it his all, and that's the thing about the middle of the pack racing. It doesn't matter whether you're multiple seconds off the lead in pace, alternatively whether you're a race leader, everyone earns some points, and also it's always great to see drivers out there giving it their best, because that's how drivers have come through from Am to Prime to Pro over the course of the last couple of years, where some drivers it's absolutely clicked in certain cars and suddenly they've been absolutely unstoppable. And many of you may remember, of course, Ilya Speaker, perhaps one of the biggest articulates of that, with his infamous victories, not just in class but overall back when he was a Pro-Am driver. Sadly not on the grid for this season. We do hope to see the Rockefeller Racing back on the grid at some point. But meanwhile, into pit lane has come Jermaine Warren. So he decides to pull the pin on a pit stop. And in doing so, well, he's going to turn this race into a bit of a longer second stint. But I think he's realised there's space out there. Now, one thing that has not changed with regards to these GTEs is how the pit stops work, as we do leave Jermaine Warren to his own device in the pit lane. And the fact that these cars, much like the FIA World Endurance Championship regulations of 2023, these cars put the fuel in first and then change tyres if they need a tyre change. So therefore, we are not expecting any tyre changes. It will purely be fuel. And if you're wondering why that's the case, well, I did spend a lot of time with a good friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, ladies and gents, well into the night reading through all the specifications. We really definitely want to understand what it says in the rules and regulations. For those curious, the World Endurance Championship regulations on which these cars are based in this simulator say specifically the car can only be refueled when all 4 tyres are touching the ground in the pit lane. So what that means is, simply put, you can't have the car up on the jacks because otherwise it would invalidate the refueling rule, so you can't change tyres and also put fuel in simultaneously. And indeed, it wouldn't just be a straightforward case of just simply saying you cannot change tyres and fuel simultaneously in the pit lane. No, it'd have to be as complex as that. But meanwhile, speaking of complexity here, we've had a change, and indeed, we've given you a bit of an interlude when it's been rude, because Roger Ganesh has lost out, and here comes a big move up the inside of Taylor Bookout, going all in there under braking. He makes one past Lord Seepet. Well, suddenly, the number 77 Pro driver has found a bit of an edge in pace here. Well, to be fair to him, it's come a bit later in the day than perhaps for some, but he's now feeling a bit of confidence. But then again, do keep in mind, of course, he was caught up in those early instants. That really did circumvent what pace he did have on the table it would be. And also, of course, the fact he didn't have the best of qualifying sessions either. So Bookout right now, I think, really finding his pace as the time has gone on. But to be fair, some drivers are like that. They need more time behind the wheel. They need to get into rim. And the qualifying doesn't always give you that. 10 minutes of qualifying, yes, you do have the option, particularly with lap times around here being just shy of 1 3/4 minutes. Doing a quick bit of mental mathematics, that does give you an outlet plus 5 flying laps of your full attack. But that's not long enough sometimes. For some drivers, you need 10, 11 laps before you finally get things to click in your head. But meanwhile, right now, what's definitely clicking here, and it's not good news if you're an Eric Lagai fan, is the fact that he's got the pressure of James Logsdon behind him. Those are the headlights of Logsdon's Ferrari, and he's getting very close as they make the way down through the chute and in towards here, in towards toe. But right now, will he be quick on his toes here? Will he be a quick finger in the number 6 in terms of holding on? James Logsdon staying relatively close, but the thing about Logsdon right now in that Ferrari is the fact that after he did make that small mistake, he might just be a little bit more nervous under braking. Now, it did look as though it was a lock-up moment there, whereby essentially he just over-compressed the front brakes very slightly, and therefore that's why we saw the car twitch, it snatched, and he had to lift off the brakes and then reapply them. And that's another bit of information we have been hearing down the paddock from our drivers in the build-up to this event, is that these cars now, they are easier to recover from lock-ups compared to before. Whereas in the previous time model, what we did see is as soon as you triggered a lock-up, it really was the case. You had to come off the brakes and let the car settle for almost a second before you could reapply them. So naturally, if you were going late into a braking zone, you would typically see the car then go off the road. Now you can recover the car. You'll just understeer a little bit into the corner, and it won't feel as though the front tyres have overheated as much. However, big lockup still will overheat the tyres aggressively. Remember, there are no anti-lock braking systems in these cars. They have been switched off. They have traction control or TCS, but they have no ABS. And that was one of the reasons why these cars, in the end, were abandoned in the form of the GT3, and the fact they were seen as being too focused on professional drivers rather than open up a door for what would be gentlemen or pay-for-place drivers. But of course, everyone's got to start somewhere, and one of the best articulates of what is the theme of gentlemen drivers one day becoming professionals, of course, none other than the Corvette team of 2023. Indeed, look who was on that, and see in particular one driver, and you'll think that man should not have been racing the car, but in the end he's become a very popular driver. Ben Keaton is his name, if my memory serves me correctly. The man who definitely has helped fund the team, but he has gone from a gentleman driver to a fully professional driver, and he part of the 2023 winning GTE Pro-Am Le Mans team. But as we do see, Logsdon right now trying to find winning ways here in this battle of Eric Lagai. He's not going to be able to find it at this distance. He's going to think about strategy here as we get closer and closer towards the halfway point of the race. But things are definitely calming down a little bit now, as strategy is going to become a bigger theme for our drivers here. Although we have seen a really big shuffle around the field. But Matt Best, meanwhile, well, leading there in his BMW. And it's great to see the fact that our top 4 right now is 4 different manufacturers: a BMW, a Porsche, a Ferrari, and then a Corvette. This variety definitely shows you how good the field is when it comes to the bounce points between the cars. And indeed, the fact that we've got 4 different drivers right up there. Chad Henson a little bit further back here in the Corvette, and to be fair to him, I think right now the Corvette perhaps not enjoying this circuit as much as it perhaps used to, and therefore might be a bit of a challenge for him. Now, one of the other things that has been changed in these cars, if you want to go into a bit more detail, if you're one of those people who absolutely loves talking about splitters, millimeters, etc., is the fact that we have seen the ride heights of these cars, and the front splitters in particular, raised higher. These cars can no longer get away with those low ride heights on them, and that's because they were unrealistic in the previous model, whereby essentially the front splitter was going through the tarmac on the modelling. So that's why we have seen the ride heights of these cars increased, and with it the front splitters now really do have a significant ground effect. But as I make the way on the back straight here, that's going to mean nothing to the two drivers battling, as Eric Lagai and James Logsdon go side by side. Logsdon on the inside, and he's going to take that place. So Lagai offered no defence, and I think right now the Porsche driver in the iRacing Rexy livery-inspired machine, the number 6 there, albeit you can't see it, you can see the door number, as he comes on down through that corner. Right now his job, I think, is to beat Logsdon on strategy. I think he might be wondering to himself, is best catchable if I beat them both on strategy? The answer could be yes. If he saves the fuel, he may just yet be able to come into this race later on. Also keep in mind the fact, with no tyre change expected for these drivers, tyre management will still be key, and it'll be interesting to see how hard they can push later on in the race, because normally when we get towards the end of the 45 minutes, when we are about 10 minutes away, we start to see a slight dip in the tyre performance previously. But now, how long will the tyres go? The rumour is these tyres now last a lot longer, but you need to drive them within their limits to get them to last, much like the GT3 modern era tyre. So that could be intriguing, because for the Ferrari of James Logsdon in particular, what has been its biggest weakness up to this point before today, it has been long-term pace, much like the BMW. What we do know about James Logsdon and Matt Best, these two are very good endurance drivers. They do very well. The longer the race is, they are able to get the car to last. But meanwhile, into the pit lane comes David Adeyemi. Now he makes his way on out here. Is this going to be a second visit? I think it is. I don't think that's a stop for strategy. I think that's a black flag there for David Adeyemi. We have not had a pit stop time registered. So if I was going to drop him all the way down to 14th place, and given all the madness that played out earlier on, I wouldn't be surprised if we do have several drivers here who currently are running very close to the 10 instant point limit. Now you may be thinking, why is it such a low limit here at the Middle Pack Racing League? Well, it is naturally to encourage what is non-contact racing. Now we do understand, of course, every so often there will be door rubs. Those are 0Xs in the book of iRacing, but big knocks and shunts, those are definitely 4Xs. So you can get away with one contact at least, perhaps two, depending on how egotistical you are with track limits. But anything beyond that, you will be seeing that drive-through penalty. And it does mean the racing gets cleaner, but also it encourages drivers to give each other space when they go racing, rather than what can happen, of course, which is if you've got a few instant points to spare, you can end up door rubbing, then accidentally giving each other a little bit of a nudge. It then becomes a 4X, etc. You get the picture, where it essentially goes from what is clean GT racing into touring car-esque racing. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Touring car, of course, absolutely deep in the heart of my own, but enough about me. But right now, that's definitely the culture we want to promote here of our drivers, which is, if you're going to make moves, make them as clean as possible and keep the racing absolutely fair. And that's one Little Pack Racing League coming into 2026. Now, several years in, it still continues to be one of the very best casual racing series all the way out on the North American continent. But meanwhile, coming out the pit lane here, Carl Peterson, he's going to get a bit of a jump then, Glenn Bratton. So Peterson moves up a place there, gaining 2 seconds in the pit lane on Bratton. Lovely bit of strategy there for the Ford GT driver, for Sunday GT Turtles, and meanwhile the privateer comes out behind him. So Peterson moves up to 5th in Pro-Am now. That's a change in strategy, and that's the thing. Strategy could be the winner for some drivers here, as David Adeyemi comes into the pit lane this time, we believe, for his actual strategic stop. So he's been into the pits now for what will be the 3rd time, as we understand it. Indeed, he can't get enough of the pit lane, but I don't think it's because he likes to be in there. I think right now fate is calling in there time and time again. But as he has to go down, and indeed everything is going a bit wrong for him. And meanwhile, we take a quick look back at a bit of a moment that has happened for Roger Ganesh early on. Many of you may remember this, and indeed we'll catch the replay of it now. And this is where it all went wrong for Roger Ganesh earlier on lap 10. So this was Ganesh making his way down the hill in towards Chute Bend, and as he made his way in, a very similar moment to Mark Senegal in a way, went deep. The difference was he understood. Oh my good lord, that was a big hit there to the Armco barrier, and well, for Roger Ganesh at that point, I wouldn't be surprised that car then had to come into the pits afterwards, or at least he's thinking about getting it repaired at some point. That was a big knock, and that explains why he lost place there to Donald Seapat and also to Taylor Bookout. So I'll be a nasty knock, but back to your live racing we come. And as we do, well, still plenty of pit stops to be done here. A lot of drivers trying to go as long as possible. Ganesh is into the pit lane, however. Shahi Zahir also in, so they are serving pit stops. Zahir heading on down now, and meanwhile, Ganesh still being serviced. So a bit of a difference of what is cultures of the two teams, and the fact one's going in and one's getting ready to come out. But meanwhile, we look back to the front of the field. Logsdon still ahead of Lagai, only 7 tenths. Gap to best has come down a little bit. It's come down from 2 seconds to 1.7 seconds at the moment. So it seems as though Logsdon is just turning up the wick a little bit here. Now I wonder if Best is perhaps controlling his pace a little bit and feeds himself, you know what, perhaps I turn it down a little bit and therefore I'll protect the car for later on. Indeed, everyone is going into an unknown right now. Really, today is the first race that we have seen this season where everyone is on the new tyre and physics model. As we see there, Eric Lagai, every time he comes out that corner, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gents, for the number 6 driver, he is pushing that car to the limit out of the final bend. But to be fair to him, he wants this win that much. And you can understand why it's such a close group, this top 3, as Chad Henson is now 10 seconds behind. Sadly, his Corvette not able to become part of the party. But it does seem as though Eric Lagai throwing everything at this to beat Logsdon, and well, if he can he go hunting after best at the very end of the race? It's going to be a bit of time to tell before that, but strategy definitely will play an increasing factor here. Meanwhile, we look back to Logsdon and Lagai. This time, only 2 attempts coming into the chicane, but to be fair, concertina effect do what it may, and Matt Best, meanwhile, onwards, as Logsdon flashes his headlights there. That is to say to Roger Ganesh, please step aside. Coming on through, and Lagai will do the same there. And Roger Ganesh, to be fair, very cognizant coming on through and lets them go. But that's why you're not seeing any of this top 3 coming to the pit lane as of yet. They're worried about the fact that if they do, they're going to be coming out behind lead lap cars that have yet to pit. Now, keep in mind, of course, we have seen pit stops all the way down to what is 8th place. So the top 7 have yet to pit, whereas everybody else has pitted. There you can see it on the timetail graphic on the left-hand side of your screen. And once they make the way onwards, well, what we can tell you is right now for these drivers, it's all going to be about essentially when do you pit, and does the rest of the field respond to that as well? Because if so, as we briefly do see the headlights come off there from other drivers behind, disappearing and rematerialising from the ether, it's not what we want to see there, to be fair. Well, oh, hold up, that's Bill and DaCosta having a bit of a spin round, and DaCosta right, well, no, that's at turn 1. We've had Roger Ganesh go round as well. So 2 separate incidents. Ganesh had lost it at turn 9, and Bill DaCosta learned it at turn 1, but gets the car back on the road. I think he's hit a barrier. That's going to be a tow to the pits there for him. So things gone a bit wrong. As meanwhile, into the pit lane, Best, Logsdon and Lagai, they all come together on the sequence here. And I think all 3 drivers have decided to come on in. They're going to match each other on strategy. But is this a sign that Chad Henson will be coming in? No, he stays out another lap. He's been saving some fuel. Ferrero's into the pits. Gabriel Ferrero comes on down pit lane. Mark Senegal, meanwhile, is he going to scoot his way to the pits? Yes, he is. It's a very tight entry line there. You have to respect it. You cannot cut it. And Mark Senegal does exactly that, coming in from the lead of the prime class. But will this reshape the nature of the class? We're about to see, because all these pit stops right now being completed, minus for Chad Henson. He's the only one who has yet to pit, so therefore we don't need the pit lane graphic anymore. But here is Best coming out, then James Logsdon, then Eric Lagai. So in the end, Lagai's actually lost out to a degree. In the pit stops, he's lost a whole second versus James Logsdon, so that gap's been reset. Logsdon, meanwhile, within a second leaving the pit lane now versus Best. So he's gained a little bit of time. He has gained the best part of 7 tenths in the pit lane, and that's going to give him some confidence now. He can go on the attack. Albeit 16.5 bits plus a final lap to go. Has Logsdon got the tyre life to be able to attack that BMW and the pace with it, or has Best just simply got an ace in the hole here that he's able to use? Jermaine Warren comes back out to lead in the Prime class. He pitted before Mark Senegal, and that's worked out for him a treat there. That's moved him ahead. He'll be very happy with that as his drivers are all the way onwards. And more in terms of when they pitted, Mark Senegal pitted on lap 16, Jermaine Warren on lap 9. So the theory is here, and then Jermaine Warren has undercut Senegal. He has given himself a longer second stint, however, so that will mean towards the end of this race, those tyres may be feeling a little bit more worn down. Now, that sounds a bit contradictory in the way of the fact they are running the same tyre as before, but we'll explain very shortly. But before we do, that's Glenn Bratton coming out just in front of Kyle Peterson. Peterson is absolutely flying since his pit stop, as we ride on board the Sunday GT Turtles driver, chasing after Bratton here as they make their way onwards. We're riding on board the Ford GT, the 250. As meanwhile, looking at my content booth window, we have had Chad Henson start to make his way down pit row. But Peterson here backing off, coming in towards the bus stop chicane, lifting off a little bit, giving himself some breathing room. The idea being he wants to go on an attack elsewhere, but the dirty air causing the car to understeer. You can definitely see the Ford GT has not lost its sensitivity with regards to aero changes. That's, of course, its strength and its biggest weakness. So the fact this is a very aero-dependent car, whereby through corners such as Watkins Glen, this Ford GT can be very quick. The only downside of it, of course, is the fact that when you're on the dirty air of another car, not in clear air, you suddenly have to really recalculate how you drive the car. And that's why he's falling back from Bratton. Even though Bratton making a bit of an error there, going a bit too wide. Peterson turning very early. He's trying to react. He's trying to adjust his driving style here to get used to the fact these apexes now are going to feel a bit different. Now, we have just noticed, we do apologise for this, the fact that our timing tower has decided to glitch. So, therefore, we are going to try and give it a bit of a reset, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully it will come back to life. But in the meantime, we will keep you apprised of what exactly is going on as best we can here as our overlay. Definitely right now, deciding to pack its cards up for the day, but that does happen every so often. We do apologise for that. We will see if we can revive it from the ashes as quickly as we can. But as Aura Dry is carrying on here with 14.5 minutes to go, what do you need to know? Well, it's currently this man who you see on screen, Matt Best, who leads the way ahead of James Logsdon just behind. That is your top two, overall and in pro. We then do have Eric Laguy following here as they make the way onwards. And there we go, we get our overlay back there, so it helps you tell the story. And we do have Eric Laguy there in third place just behind, and he lost out in the pit strategy. He gained a lot of time on circuit, but since then, and things have fallen a bit backwards for him. Chad Henson, meanwhile, running fourth at the moment. And while he is the fourth manufacturer in the top four, the Corvette following the Porsche, the Ferrari and BMW all the way to the front. But Henson has not been on the pace of the top three. And if anything, Gabriel Ferrero, his fellow Corvette driver behind, has been very slowly gaining on him. And we should emphasise the word slowly here. It has not been quick. He has been very much taking his time, inching closer and closer little by little as Eric Laguy into the pit lane, and that's unfortunate. That's going to be a drive-through penalty for Laguy, I suspect. He's picked up one too many off tracks. He's pushed so hard, and unfortunately it's come back to bite him hard here. And where he was pushing, to be fair, we saw it coming out of the final corner on several occasions. But Chad Henson now is going to take what will be third place of him, so he moves up. And as he does so, well, Gabriel Ferrero behind in fifth now moves to fourth. Jermaine Warren is your leader in Pro-Am. He's also going to pick up the pieces there from Eric Laguy as he comes on down towards turn number one. So your Pro-Am leader. And in terms of his story, as Laguy is practically going to be side by side with him exiting the pit lane, albeit a bit behind, so expect a change between them. And we'll remember, of course, the fact you score points based on your overall finisher position first and foremost in this series, not based on class position. So therefore, the Pro-Ams are encouraged to beat the Pros, and the Pros are encouraged to make sure the Pro-Ams don't get past them. But Jermaine Warren right now has been a bit of a class of his own since the start of the race. Albeit he started second and in the end lost out in qualifying to Tom Bryce. But Bryce had a difficult start to his race, falling a lap down by comparison. Jermaine Warren has picked up the pieces. And since then has never looked back. He'll be looking back and thinking, should I cut the track limits there? So that's going to be an instant point coming his way. Eric Laguy then down to sixth now. And then we have the second of your Pro-Am drivers, Mark Senegal there, the Sunday GT Turtles driver. This is what he wanted at Road Atlanta. And at Road Atlanta, it all went wrong when he was second place in class after a huge mistake coming into the 90 rights towards the back end of the lap. But here today in the 227 car, he's had a much happier day. And with 12.5 minutes to go, can he make it stay that way? 10.5 seconds behind him is Donald Cepek there, the BMW M8 driver in the 216. The man who took victory at Road Atlanta in the Pro-Am class, but unfortunately here today, not on the pace in his BMW. Indeed, qualifying seemed to be a bit of a struggle, but as the race has gone, he's settled down a little bit, but he's still the best part of 10.5 seconds away from Mark Senegal and a further 6 seconds away from Jermaine Warren. So therefore, he's going to have to go back to the drawing board after this one and think, okay, why is it I'm not on the pace compared to how I was at Road Atlanta? And I think the answer he's going to find here is the fact this BMW has definitely been a bit of a chalk and cheese car today, where it's either very quick or it's not quite quick enough. Meanwhile, Taylor Buckout just behind him there, running in 9th place. And remember, he started all the way down in 14th place. He's had a phenomenal run to this race as he moved forward bit by bit. And right now, trying to chase down Cepek for that 8th. And there's target with Mark Senegal a long way ahead. Shahi's ahead. He started in 9th, he's fallen to 10th, and since then he hasn't really come back. Of course, there was that big incident going on through what was the outer loop corner where Tom Bryce got it wrong, tapping the rear of Gabriel Ferrero's car. And in the end, Shahi's there tried to take evasive action, but in the end wasn't able to go wide enough to avoid the wayward Porsche, and that sent him backwards into a barrier. But since then, he has got the car running. So that is how your top 10 stands. But we come back to the battle for 8th here. That's going to be a change of foot. Taylor Buckout goes inside to outside of the S's. And in the end, we will see Donald Cepek just fall back a little bit, albeit as they build the way out now to 4th, then to 5th gear, where it does seem as though BMW close. But in the end, Taylor Buckout will just outrun it to the braking zone. And understandably at this point, I suspect what's happening is the simple fact of the matter whereby Donald Cepek decided and he's going to let the place go a little bit and just run in the draft to Taylor Buckout's Porsche for a time, and therefore he'll lose some points. But to be fair to him, 3rd place today will still be very valuable when all things are considered in the Pro-Am Championship. We're only going to be 2 rounds in at the end of today. Every point matters, no doubt about it, for the overall championship at the end of the season. But in the US Cup at least, it will still be Donald Cepek leading just about. As they come down in towards the hairpin of none other than Toe Bend. Well, meanwhile, outside the top 10 is Glenn Bratton. He's 11th. He had a good start to his race, to be fair. The man who started in 15th, but midway through, falling out of the podium places in the Pro-Am class. He's fallen back here, and he does have Carl Peterson, who was close. However, Peterson, since being in that dirty air, has lost some momentum now in his Ford GT, but he did pull off an absolutely brilliant bit of strategy to get himself into 5th in Pro-Am and 12th overall, so definitely cannot be underestimated how good he is on the strategy here today. And then we do have Roger Ganesh in 13th place. Making his way onwards as he does so. Well, we've got a bit of change potentially coming here, as Eric Laguy right now trying to go on the offensive as we ride on board the dashboard of your Porsche 911 RSR driver in the number 6. And Making his way through turns 2, 3 and 4. Into draft he does go here, but he's going to build up the speed little by little, getting closer and closer versus that Corvette. And we're now looking to the inside here and getting ready to go onto the brakes for the bus stop chicane in due time. Once he does so, it's going to be Logan on the left of your picture, it's going to be Warren on the right, and Jermaine Warren in the end has got no answer to this fight, and it is going to be that way as Eric Logan moves up into 5th place. Meanwhile, Shahi's ahead into the pit lane, maybe for a drive-through penalty for his instant points, but meanwhile, back to the front of the field, we were wondering if Logsdon was going to catch up to Matt Best, and well, here's your answers. We look back from the rear of your race leader, the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver right now, Sparks flying from the under tray of the BMW M8. The number 11 is under attack here by the 42 of James Logsdon, and indeed, you'll have to understand those headlights there, what tell us it's a Ferrari, given the fact it has got the triangular trifecta, and rolling the way in towards the end of this lap. Well, Best right now knows this is not going to be easy all the way to the finish line. But how exactly can he get things done? How exactly would he make... Oh, that's a big knock to the barrier there for James Logsdon. That's going to help out massively for Best. That is a sign of Logsdon there pushing hard, and the dirty air just coming back to bite him slightly as he taps the wall. And well, taps like that initially don't mean too much, understandably, in the fact that there will be a bit of damage to the outside shell of the car. It's if you hit the wall at an angle, that's when the problem starts happening. If it's a flush contact, you can get away with a couple of them before it starts to knock the body shell in over the front tyres. But if you go in at an angle, Logsdon not quite, that's where you do the suspension damage. So Logsdon's got to be careful here, because if he keeps doing that, he's going to also pick up instant points on those contacts to the wall. And, well, we have seen drive-through penalties send some drives backwards, including, of course, that visit to Vitsushar. He's ahead. That's dropped him all the way down to 12th place. But Logsdon right now will definitely feel as though he's earned the right to be this close over the course of the race. He's had to fend off Eric Lagai for the opening 30 minutes of the race constantly. Best has been given a little bit of a free pass in a way at the front of the field. Now, that's not to be rude about him, to be fair. He has done an absolutely brilliant job on that BMW M8, but what he's been able to do as well is have some time to save the tyres, but the car just twitches on him there, coming in towards toe. And is this the BMW now really starting to be exposed at the end? To be fair, this Ferrari, we've normally seen the Ferrari be the car whereby we would like to refer to it as the race ender. In the fact, over the course of the distance, it only takes one small mistake, and saying those tyres will be so hot and the brakes as well with it, and the Ferrari struggles. But right now, Logsdon looks so comfortable here in this Ferrari. Well, they did have that big twitch into turn 1 about 20 minutes into the race, which cost him second place to Lagai, but he got it back. But now it seems as though the shoe's on the foot of Matt Best here, and Best does not seem to be very comfortable in that car. With only 7 minutes to go here, well, they've got what is another 5 laps remaining, if my mental maths is correct, including the one they're about to go onto. But Logsdon is close here. I think he's starting to figure out when, not if he can go for the move, but where does he go for it? That's the problem. Well, as we ride on board, it's the corners that are the problem here for Best BMW. You can see the car just does not look planted on the entry. It seems as though the front end of the car has got a different idea compared to the back end. The back end wants to go round, the front end really wanting to understeer forward, and that's leading to that twitchiness. But now on the stretches here in the draft, well, that BMW, it's quick on the straight, but Logsdon has the draft here, and, well, the draft of these GT cars is huge with the aerodynamics they have, and in the end, it's going to be Best putting the car right in the middle of the road, and says Logsdon, no can do, sir. But this is the rivalry of old between these two. They have raced each other for years in this series, and coming down the hill right now, Logsdon staying so close there, rolling the way out the outer loop. We can see Best using all the road as much as he can. Logsdon much more conservative here, and I think Logsdon realising he's got more to lose by running wide out these corners, because the barriers, they will not be forgiving if he keeps making contact with them. Well, coming on down. Well, meanwhile, we've had a bit of drama for Mark Senegal as well. He's had a bit of a spin. That's cost him. That's some time. He has not lost second place in the Pro-Am class. But he's got Taylor Bookout and Donald Seepeck right behind him. Well, first up's a pro driver here who'd like to take the overall 7th place off of him. And I don't think you want to give that up in a hurry. This is going to be a battle of 2 Porsches, equal setups on these machines. It all comes down to the driver at this point. But Mark Senegal definitely making a small mistake, and that mistake could prove costly the later he goes into this race now. Tyres will be perhaps a little bit hot. And in fact, we might be able to get a quick replay of what exactly happened to Mark Senegal only moments ago. So this was Senegal at the time, 12 seconds ahead of Taylor Bookout. So this was a big moment for him as he went in towards, I believe that's Hill Bend, and in the rear of the car completely coming around. You can tell by the rear headlights there, and then they having to get the car recovered. So that explains the story and why suddenly the gap came down as much as it did, as he had to turn the car around and then get it restarted. Well, we restart things back to your live pictures now. We do. Well, that explains a whole lot with regards to what exactly happened to Mark Senegal, but thankfully he's able to keep it going, and Taylor Bookout still behind him, at least for now. But as we do see Chad Henson coming across that timeline, the man in third, he has got Gabriel Ferrero, who is matching him in terms of pace, albeit to 2 tenths that last time out. He was the quicker driver. So the point being at this moment that right now Chad Henson feeling some distant pressure from Ferrero for the final spot on the Pro and Overall podium. If he is able to hold on here, it definitely would be a big achievement, and that's what he's going to be going for as these drivers wind their way and through. But can Henson hold on, or will he find himself pressured right at the very end? Well, not long left to find out here with the number of laps remaining now down to 3, including the one they're on. And well, Gabriel Ferreira here, if he's got anything in the tank, he's going to need to deploy it quickly. He needs to get within a second, really. The slipstream, of course, picked up around 2 seconds distance, but it becomes really prominent 1 second, and it grows massively the closer he gets to the car in front. And that's what you're seeing here between Best and Logsdon, as Matt Best right now, he's having to weave down the back straight. And, of course, this is a little bit of a contradictory thing. You weave to try and break the toe, but naturally, if you're not driving on a straight line on a straight piece of circuit, then, of course, the shortest distance between points A and B is a straight line, as you'll always be taught in school. But the problem is right now Matt Best is extending that run. He's putting some extra heat in the tyres as well, but he's worried about the fact that Logsdon is looking so dangerously quick at this distance. As they come toward the end of this lap, it's going to be another 2 to go with 3.5 minutes left on the clock. We will get 26 laps here today. And right now, Logsdon, you can see he's corrected his line out the final quarter. He doesn't want to get close to that wall anymore. And indeed, he runs close enough to it, but not too close to hit it. Best, meanwhile, now, well, 2 more turns of the circuit. But I think he realises that if he can get the understeer issue that he's experienced on the front end of his car under control, he is going to be safe towards the very end as the sparks fly from underside the car there. And absolutely brilliant as Best makes his way up the hill, doing everything he can right now to keep that gap to Logsdon just about. But you can see there James Logsdon getting closer. In fact, pulls out of the draft this time, does Logsdon. Interesting. So, is Logsdon here trying to get into Best's mind? I wonder if he is, because he's very quick there in towards the bus stop chicane. In fact, only 1.5 attempts as he comes on through. So right now, James Logsdon attacking hard as they come through and down the hill. But as they do, runs out very wide, touching the grass there as well. He's got to be so careful. Almost the barrier. Logsdon, well, he now knows what he could do coming out the S's. He knows that Ferrari towards top gear is now looking very quick. And we'll get him ready to go in towards the hairpin here. Right now, Logsdon's got all the tools at his disposal. He's got 1 more lap after this. So this is going to be the precursor lap, if you will, whereby he's essentially just trying to understand, okay, where can I attack, where can I not? Matt Best, of course, doing all his mental analysis at this point as well. These two drivers right now playing the game of high-speed, high-stakes chess, but come the end of it, they will be playing checkers to the line, because that's what the flag's made of, as they roar the way up towards turn number 9. And well, next time around, of course, they will be seeing that finish line. But for Logsdon here, gap 3 attempts at the corners where the gap would normally be a lot greater. He is the quicker driver at this point. And Best right now definitely feels like BMW's going away, but Logsdon takes a little bit of grass there into turn 10 on the outside. It just pulls the car slightly wide. Those are the mistakes you can't afford, because it resets the gap back to what is 6 attempts there. And is that a mistake that's going to cost Logsdon now? 1 minute 40 to go. We believe we briefly saw a glimmer of the white flag there at the finish line. So therefore, they are onto the final lap here. And Matt Best now with 7 attempts of a second gap. I think he might be safe here, unless Logsdon can block the mother of all sector runs at this point, and the run through the bus stop chicane as well. Which, to be fair, he's been doing that for the last couple of laps with that small error into turn number 10. And for Logsdon, I think that might be it. There's no other battles out there, so we're going to stay with the lead battle all the way to the end now. But it's been so close between these two since the pit stops, and we have seen Logsdon has just gradually chiseled that gap down. But right now, whereas he's perhaps used a bit of a hammer to get it down, he really needs a scalpel at this point. But unfortunately, I think his scalpel's a bit rusty, and as he makes his way on through, and turn number 5, we can see that gains 2.5 attempts to the bus stop chicane alone. That is where his pace is. It is in the middle section of the lap. But as he comes down through Shoot Bend, when you are this far back, you need Best to make a mistake here. And what's the one thing that Matt Best has done all day today? He has been absolutely faultless. Yes, he's had a small wobble or two, but he's had no real notable mistakes as such. And that's why your BMW driver right now is able to maintain this gap. But still, don't rule Logsdon out here. Don't rule the fact we've still got 4 corners to go, and anything can happen before they get to the checker flag, and it normally does in motorsport. 30 seconds left. We are on our final tour of the circuit here in New York, and as they roar the way up the hill from turn 8 to 9 for Logsdon, 5 attempts is still the gap here. Best right now, all he needs to do at this point is now the last 2 corners. They're surely as easy as that, but not when you've got a threatening wall on the outside of the final bend. But here they come, making the way through turn number 10 and in towards 11 for Best. It's been a hard-fought race. He's led it all the way from the start, and as he makes his way out to the final corner, the checker flag will wait him, and for Matt Best, it is victory on his return to the grid for the GTE League, ahead of James Logsdon, who comes along in second place just behind. And then what a battle it's between them, because they have finished 22 seconds clear of the rest of the field, and well, coming home to round off the podium. As much as Gabriel Ferrero wanted that podium, in the end he's not going to make it onto it this time around, because as Chad Henson is going to hold on there to complete the overall pro podium. What a drive from him as well, earning the podium right at the finish. And then it will be Gabriel Ferreira, who's come all the way through from 6th to 4th. Epic drive ahead of Eric Lagai, who unfortunately will not feel great after his trip to the pits, that drive-through penalty, but he put in a great performance. Jermaine Warren will come home in 6th place there and be your Pro-Am winner today. What a drive from the 214 driver in this Corvette. In the end, absolutely faultless when others were full of faults, although not Mark Senegal, to be fair, making amends for Road Atlanta and coming him second to the prime, 7th overall ahead of Taylor Bookout, and he's gone from 14th to 8th. He'll be pleased with that given how the race started. Donald Sepek rounded off the prime podium there, the man who ran at Road Atlanta today, taking the 3rd place spot in 9th overall. And then we do have a further few seconds back to Glenn Bratton, who after some late pressure from Carl Peterson, he was able to steer clear, and his BMW in the end will round off the top 10, 4th place in the prime class. No bonus points coming his way, given they get bonus points for being on the prime podium, but Bratton in the end round off your top 10 ahead of Carl Peterson. He's happy with that, and he deserves to be in that Ford GT. He made it work on strategy today to go to 11th place for the 16th. Shahi Zahair in the end will come home in 12th. Knowing that drive-through penalty at the end has cost him dear, and he'll be quite frustrated at that one with the pace he brought to the table. And as he crossed the line, we do have Roger Ganesh to come through, and he will be your last lead lap finisher, ladies and gentlemen, with David Adey the first lap down finishers, but Roger Ganesh will take 13th there as we do run out of replay tape. And indeed, that shows you how brilliant the race has been, but all the racing must come to a close, as in the end, Tom Bryce, Blake Phillips and Bill DaCosta completing that finishing order. But with the timeout, indeed, on this race, indeed, what a race it has been. Well, let's take a look at the scenic view if we can, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we might have a bit of a glitch here, but hopefully we will be able to bring you those race results. And here they are, subject to any Stewards inquiries. And as we can see in the end, an absolutely brilliant race, no doubt about it, but it was Matt Best who took victory in the end for Texas Speed Sim Racing in round number 2 of the Millpack Racing League GTE League 2026, brought to you today from Watkins Glen International. And well, it was a drive from pole position to victory, but along the way, he was harried and tarried by none other than James Logsdon, the Team Bear Folk driver, chasing him furiously. But in the end, whilst the gap did come down to 1/10 at one point on the penultimate lap, it wasn't quite enough for the Ferrari driver to be able to do the job, and in the end, he had to settle for second place. Chad Henson round off the podium there and earn it through the drive-through penalty for Eric Lagai, but to be fair, you had to be in the right place to take it, and that's exactly what Chad Henson did there in his Corvette. It was another Corvette, a Gabriel Ferreira behind. We enjoyed a lot of battling with prime drives earlier on in this race, and I think he'll be wondering to himself if he had qualified better, could he have been on the podium today? Well, that's always a what-if question, as he was only a second behind at the finish line. And then Eric Lagai, if it were not for the drive-through penalty, could he have been chasing the win right at the end? He pushed so hard today, the Kyrgyzstan driver, but to be fair to him, if that's the pace he brings after 2 rounds, imagine what he's going to be like next time out at Road America. It was then Jermaine Warren, your Pro-Am winner today, in 6th place there, and the MOP racing driver. We're very happy with the points he brought, plus also the fact he picks up 3 bonus points for being on the top step of the prime podium, and 2 bonus points will come the way of the man who finished behind him, Mark Senegal, runner-up in the prime class, 7th overall for Sunday GT Turtles. And in the end for him, he definitely didn't have the pace to match Jermaine Warren. Nobody did, it would seem, but he definitely had the pace today to stay 1 step ahead, even if he did make some early mistakes, with Shoot Bend catching out both him and also several other drives, including Glenn Bratton. But before we get to Glenn Bratton, who finished 10th, we do see Taylor Book out there in 8th place. A very solid drive from him, a dismal qualifying performance, but to be fair, stayed out of trouble in the race, even though trouble found him early on. And the Team Bear Poke driver was just ahead of his teammate there, Donald Sepek, who in the end had taken the 3rd place spot on the prime podium. And the Road Atlanta winner didn't have the pace today in qualifying, and in the racing he had to settle for 3rd. But to be fair, he won't be too upset about that when it was 9th as well, and with it a lot of points. Glenn Bratton in 10th place in the end, just missing out on the prime podium. He was a further what was none other and then 24 seconds behind, but to be fair, he had his own challenges, particularly the strategic masterclass from Carl Peterson, who moved through and finished best rest and 11th place in the Sunday GT Turtles Ford GT. Shahi Zahair took 12th there. The drive-through penalty cost him a chance for a top 10, and he was your last lead lap finisher. We've been a lap down to Roger Ganesh there for Sunday GT Turtles ahead of David Adey, and we saw a lap down for Tom Bryce and Blake Phillips, and all the Pit Club Sim Racing driver was your last classified finisher of the race, as unfortunately we did see a retirement for Bill DaCosta after he shunt to the wall at turn number 1 midway through, and indeed his race was done at 12 laps in the end for Team Bear Pope. But what a brilliant race, no doubt about it. And if Road Atlanta was an appetizer, we've had a main feast today here at Watkins Glen International, and I think we are going to be gorging on brilliant GTE racing action all the way through this season, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as things cool and calm on down, when it's time for us, sadly, to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid in the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, well indeed, we welcome everybody. It doesn't matter whether you hail from the North American continent or from the other side of the world, you are welcome to be on the grid, and to do so, why not get on the grid by joining our official Discord, invite link available on screen. It is the beating heart of the community, and we would love to see you there. And don't worry if you're a rookie to GTE, a lot of the drivers are, they've never driven GTEs before, indeed everyone's learning as they go, and we would love to see you join us on that learning experience. Or if you're a professional, you can show us how it's done, of course. But if you don't want to go to the Discord, perhaps you're a little bit shy, or perhaps you're more of a social media person, we can, of course, follow us on Twitter, now known as X as well, and that's at twitter.com/MOP Race, and we can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements and all things Middle of the Pack Racing League. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we've had 2 rounds of our US Cup already complete, and next time out, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be making our way all the way to the picturesque countryside circuit of Road America. And there, around Elkhart Lake, we're going to hear the roar of naturally aspirated cars as well as turbo supplemented machinery. But who exactly is going to achieve the big score at Road America? Well, we'll be bringing you all the racing action that will occur on Wednesday, the 25th of March 2026, as if it were live on Saturday, the 28th of March. To do so do save the date in the diary. But what exactly have we seen today? Well, in the absence of Jason Landry, we have seen Matt Best put down a marker on his debut race for the GTE League. However, James Logsdon was never too far behind, and in the end, we've got a very closely matched pro class when Eric Lagaya and Chad Henson were right in the thick of it, and Gabriel Ferrero seemed to shine in the late stages. As for Prime, 2 winners in 2 different races. We have seen Don Cepak take the win at Road Atlanta, and we have seen Jermaine Warren take the win today, but consistency just as key as pace. Can anybody make it a 3 different winners in 3 different races for the Primes, or will we see our first repeat winner? Well, all that and more we'll find out 2 weeks from now, but until then, ladies and gentlemen, well, we've been in the Middle of the Pack Racing League, you've been tuning into our GTE League today, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. But until next time, have a great rest of your weekend, and most importantly, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.